Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday, and we've got some college football prospects to look at. And I'll be perfectly honest, I had a bit of a hard time this week to fill out these categories. It was not easy to locate worthy players from this week. And honestly, some of the guys that I scooped up most weeks would probably not make the cut, but we're going to work with what we have and we're going to talk about this particular group. And there are definitely some really good performances. So let's start with quarterback. Like we always do, here are my top quarterbacks from the most recent week of college football. We're going to start with Spencer Rattler. He's coming on strong here for South Carolina, and we have to remember that he's got no offensive line to work with. So I know a lot of people don't really like him. I am kind of hesitant to believe in him myself, but there's going to be a unique opportunity to get a very talented player late in the draft at some point coming up in April. And some team is going to decide, you know what, it's worth the risk. 28 to 36, 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1 rushing touchdown as well. So he accounted for 4, 81.7 PFF grade. He's coming on here, and he's got so little to work with the Gamecocks. So to me, Spencer Rattler becomes an intriguing gamble if he falls far enough. I'm not going crazy here with him. I am thinking day 3 here, but day 3, if he's there, I'm pretty on board with it at this point. But the real star of the week was probably Jaden Daniels of LSU. I mean, you don't see games like this almost ever. In fact, I think literally you've never seen a game like this ever. 17 to 26 for 372 yards, so he was hitting big plays like they were nothing. 372 yards on 17 completions is off the chain. 3 touchdowns, 234 rushing yards on 12 rushes, so almost 20 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 96.1 PFF grade. This guy's becoming very interesting now. Like, that game has to put him in a new light because it was against Florida. He was playing Florida. He wasn't playing Grambling State. He wasn't playing Jackson State. He was playing Florida, a credible college football team with a decent defense. I'm not going to say good defense, but a real defense at the very least. Like, you've never seen numbers like this before. So Jaden Daniels is really pushing his way into day 2, and I'm starting to feel it, man. Starting to feel it. There are still concerns, but they're not nearly as big as they were before this college football season started. Bo Nix, next up, 23-31 for 412 yards, 4 touchdowns, 5 yards rushing. This was actually his worst game of the year by PFF with 68. So a game where he threw for 4 touchdowns and 412 yards was his worst game of the year. That's the kind of year that Bo Nix is having. Good Lord. So special stuff there, even if I'm a little bit cold on him as a pro prospect. Michael Penix, I know the numbers aren't amazing, but he was playing the Utah defense in a significant windstorm with some rain to boot. 24 of 42 for 332 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, 77 PFF. Against a Utah defense with bad conditions, I'm happy to celebrate that. Cam Ward is my 5th. Honestly, I wasn't that... Oh, by the way, this should be 34, not 24. Honestly, I don't think he played quite as good as these numbers indicate. He was very inefficient. 59 attempts to get 354 passing yards is really not good. 34 of 59 is not good. But again, we have to remember Cam Ward does not have a good team around him at all. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He ran for a touchdown. 64.2 PFF grade. Cam Ward's really tough to judge right now because obviously his team has completely fallen apart. They are probably not even making a bowl game now. But Cam Ward, it feels like he's doing what he can, and he's got very little to work with. I got to be honest here. All right, so those are your quarterbacks. Tight ends now. We got Cade Stover back with a vengeance. 7 catches, almost 80 yards and a touchdown. Ohio State ran the ball with ease, almost 180 rushing yards, 5.5 yards a carry. 0 sacks allowed on Ohio State quarterbacks. 91.4 PFF grade for Stover. So he continues to be one of my favorites. Really liking this guy still. Ben Sinote of KSU returned to our list here. KSU, 68 yards for him, 3 catches, 1 touchdown. They ran the ball really well, 183 yards, 4.9 yards a carry. They allowed 1 sack on Will Howard, and a 75.4 PFF grade. Solid all-around game. Next up, we have Brevin Spanford. He showed up this week for Minnesota, 5 catches, 59 yards, and a touchdown. He did allow a sack in pass protection, though. It was actually him who allowed it. So we kind of know that Spanford's not much of a blocker, but yeah, he's not much of a blocker. 60.5 PFF grade largely because he gave up the sack. But he shows that he's starting to at least make progress as a playmaker, which is the more important thing with Spanford. He's not, we know he's not a blocker going in. He's supposed to be a playmaker. Dallin Holker, late riser here, somebody who's come onto my radar pretty recently here for Colorado State. 6 catches, 57 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, which, I mean, hey, not every day you see a tight end get a rushing touchdown. No pressures allowed, no sacks allowed on the CSU quarterback. 70 PFF grade, nice and solid. Bryson Nesbitt of UNC closes us out. 7 catches, 68 yards and a touchdown. UNC ran the ball really well, 195 rushing yards, 4.5 yards a carry. They allowed 2 sacks on May, but Nesbitt wasn't dinged for any of them or any pressures. 75 PFF grade. He's coming on strong here. He's rounding the corner for the end of this season, trying to put himself in good position to get drafted, and I think he is. Okay, interior offensive line guys, we're going to lead with Jordan Morgan of Arizona. He is playing tackle, like a decent number of these guys are. He may convert to guard in the NFL, he may not, but Arizona ran the ball really well. 7.7 yards a carry, 207 yards total. He didn't allow any pressures. The team as a whole allowed 1 sack, 67.3 PFF grade. Cooper Bebe makes our list again. KSU, 183 rushing yards, 4.9 yards a carry. Same as the Sinote stats. 69.1 PFF grade. He's another guy playing good tackle, but I'm pretty confident Bebe will end up playing guard. Christian Mahogany makes our list, even though Boston College actually had a not dominant day running the ball. 124, 4.3 yards a carry is pedestrian by their standards, and he did allow 1 QB pressure, but his work as a run blocker, despite the team's overall mediocrity at it, was very respectable. 82.4 PFF grade speaks to that. So Mahogany continues to make some progress as a top right guard in this draft. Speaking of top right guards, we got Tate Ratledge. Georgia is back on track. They are whooping everybody in front of them right now. 300 rushing yards against a good team. They were not playing Georgia Western, Sun Belt, Chattanooga, Beltway State, or anything like that. They were playing a real team. 8.6 yards a carry. No pressures, no sacks allowed on Carson Beck. 82 PFF grade. Tate Ratledge, he's going to be a very appealing right guard prospect come April. And then finally, we got Connor Colby, who hasn't been here for a while because Iowa's offense is the Iowa offense. But he had a good week. Iowa ran for almost 180 yards, only 3.9 yards a carry, didn't allow anything in pass protection, 72.1 PFF grade, and hopefully he can overcome that crummy Iowa offense to get some credibility in the upcoming draft. So yeah, Connor Colby, look him up. Okay, defensive line here, found some good stuff. Took a little while to fill out the list though, and it's the usual suspects here. Tyleik Williams, T'Vondre Sweat, Jerzan Newton. They could be here almost every week, honestly. Williams had 4 tackles and a tackle for loss, which was a sack, 3 pressures. Both Williams and Sweat were part of run defenses that allowed barely over 3 yards a carry. They were both dominant in that regard. Tyleik Williams in particular was part of an OSU defense that completely shut it down. 182 yards allowed, 3 points allowed. Only a 64 PFF grade, which I don't know how this can be the end result and you only get a 64. But T'Vondre Sweat had basically the same day, just not complete defensive dominance. But 73.2 PFF grade for Sweat. 2 very intriguing nose tackles for me. I like both these guys a lot. And Newton, I mean, he's always here these days for Illinois. The only problem with that is that Illinois' defense is bad, but hard for me to put it on him. He had 4 pressures, a sack. He recovered a fumble as well, by the way. 83.7 PFF grade. He is killing fools right now. And the kind of sleeper guy who I've been really taking note of lately, Ebugbe of Alabama, 3 tackles, 2 for a loss, 1 sack, 3 pressures. Alabama only allowed 253 yards, 61.1 PFF grade. And then the last guy I found was Nazir Stackhouse, 3 tackles and a sack, and a 75.1 PFF grade for a dominant Georgia performance overall. So kind of tough to fill out the list here, but we found a guy who I think had a respectable game. Okay, linebacker, this one challenged me as well. I did not see a lot of stellar stuff from the linebackers this week. I'm just going to say that right now. The guys that I ended up featuring here are Danny Stutzman of Oklahoma. He had 8 tackles, 2 for a loss, but that's it. Like, there's a silver lining there. He allowed nothing in coverage, but 58.2 PFF grade. He didn't get any pressures. He didn't do anything crazy over the top. He didn't make any big plays. He was just grinding. And given where Danny Stutzman was earlier this year, that's a little disappointing. Edgerrin Cooper is a new addition to our list here, and I want to spotlight this guy just a little bit. This wasn't even one of his best games for Texas A&M, but he's a guy who's really come on strong here in the last several weeks. Hawksnest turned me on to him. He's going places. He's going to get drafted, I think. 10 tackles, 3 pressures, allowed 24 yards in coverage. Texas A&M only allowed 10 points and 237 yards. Great defensive performance, 64 PFF grade. Again, not even really one of his best games, but a very respectable game. And he's a guy who people are going to have to start paying attention to, I think. He's going to get drafted. Peyton Wilson makes the list again. He's a late riser, but he is rising, definitely. North Carolina State, 7 tackles, 2 for a loss, 1 pass breakup, 18 yards in coverage allowed, 7 rushing yards allowed by the NC State defense, only 163 total yards, and a 65.3 PFF grade. So NC State locked down on defense, and Peyton Wilson's a big architect of that. Curtis Jacobs of Penn State, 7 tackles, 1.5 for loss against a really good Ohio State team. 9 yards allowed in coverage, only allowed 238 total yards. Only a 59 PFF grade. Don't know if I agree with that. I thought he played better than that. But yeah, Curtis Jacobs still grinding out a pretty nice season here for the Nittany Lions. And Jeremiah Trotter Jr. was probably our best performer this week, honestly, for Clemson. 6 tackles, 2 for a loss, a sack. 117 rushing yards allowed by the Clemson defense, 3.5 yards a carry. Only 250 yards allowed. 65.8 PFF grade. It was not a great week for linebackers. Just couldn't find much. Just straight up. Like, Trotter was probably the best, and that's not exactly saying a ton. All right, safety. This one was also difficult, but I was able to scrounge up some interesting ones. We got Javon Bullard again. 5 tackles, 1 for a loss, a pick, 68.1 PFF grade. Continues to be a nice ball hawk for that Georgia secondary. Deshaun Pace. I know he's playing linebacker for Cincinnati, but I'm pretty sure he'll be a safety in the NFL. He's coming on strong here. 5 tackles, 1 for a loss. He had a pick, returned to 25 yards. Nice little 70.7 PFF grade. His brother's making waves in the NFL. I think Deshaun Pace may end up doing the same. We're finally going to throw Andrew Mukuba in here for a Clemson, or Makuba, I think his name is. He didn't do anything special over the super special over the top, but he's playing all over the place for that Clemson D. He's playing some cornerback. He's playing some in the box. He's playing on the line. He's playing free safety. He's all over the place. And he did not allow a single reception in coverage. And he played a really clean game, 74.1 PFF grade. I think we got to talk about this guy a little bit more. He's not putting up big numbers. He's not making a ton of splash plays, but his versatility is really fun. Malachi Moore is back. Alabama, 2 tackles and a QB pressure. Allowed -4 yards in coverage. Alabama only allowed 250 total. And even though he didn't put up big numbers, 70.1 PFF shows that he played a clean game, at least. Final guy we're going to look at here is Bew Braid of Maryland, another one of my late rising favorites. 5 tackles and a QB pressure, allowed 30 yards in coverage. 269 total yards allowed by the Maryland defense, and only 10 points, 70.8 PFF. By the way, if on a player I don't list their coverage yards allowed, it means they did not allow any in that game. Okay, so that's it for college football prospects today. That's what I got. Things are starting to really take form here. We're starting to get a pretty good idea of who's worth looking at and who's not. We're seeing some guys who are late risers. We're definitely getting a very nice opportunity to get a feel for which players are using these last few weeks to boost themselves. Like Jaden Daniels, we're getting to the point now where people are going to start talking about him as like a second round pick. And I don't think he's there yet, but if he continues to play like this and maybe even gets on stage for a Heisman finalist, it's going to build. It's definitely going to build. And we're starting to see late risers like Dallin Holker, who is not a big name by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm noticing him, whereas I didn't notice him at all a month ago. And some of these guys on the defensive line, and a couple of these linebackers, I'll say, we're starting to really hone in on what guys need to be monitored going into the offseason. Obviously, we need to see how they test, but I'm kind of liking the way this draft class is starting to shake out. So, see you guys later. More videos coming. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I missed anything. And we will do this again next week as we start to wind down the college football season. See you guys later.